You might be wondering, what is unsupervised reconciliation? Well, reconciliation is a very common accounting problem and basically involves matching individual records and datasets, let's say your check register and your bank statement, or invoices and payments. Once everything's matched up that can be, as an accountant you're most interested in following up on anything that's left over. Now, reconciliation seems as though it should be easy. Look for a transaction from one source and then find the matching one from the other and repeat. When I started in accounting back in the 1990s, I'd venture to say that most reconciliation was done manually, or if you were lucky, using spreadsheets. Nowadays, there are software packages that let you do reconciliation. Now, if you're a medium to large-sized organization, you might have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on one of those packages, and not only that, you'd then have to write reconciliation rules to configure the software to work on your particular problem. Now that's pretty time-consuming. You really have to know the data, and the reconciliation rules often get so complex that performance is surprisingly poor. At Galisteo, we've been working on a revolutionary idea: use the data itself to figure out the rules. That's why we call our approach unsupervised reconciliation, because the software needs very little supervision. And, by the way, it's usually more accurate than humans are when they write rules, because this is what computers are very good at, seeing subtle patterns in large amounts of data. So our idea is that you should just be able to point the same software at any pair of datasets that you want to reconcile, and the reconciliation then just happens automatically, cutting way down on the need for costly labor and expertise to configure the software. Is this really possible? Well, let me try to convince you by showing you a demo. I'm going to open up proof of concept software we've developed that we call ACRE, the Account Reconciliation Engine. Within ACRE are patent-pending algorithms we've developed for unsupervised reconciliation. Let's get started. On the first screen, we pick the pair of datasets we want to reconcile. Maybe one of those is a list of invoices and the other is a list of payments on those invoices. These datasets come from tables in a database system. For each dataset, we have to say which column represents the amount. This is important because the whole idea of reconciliation is that the amount from one source has to match the amount in another. So the amount column is pretty important. If I write a check for $50, then I should expect to see $50 as being the amount that shows up on my bank statement. Once I've selected the datasets and the amount columns, we can see the scale of our problem in this particular case. Here we have almost 500,000 transactions to reconcile on one side to just 10,000 transactions on the other side, and overall we have between $100 and $200 million worth of transactions to reconcile. Now, if I were using other reconciliation software products at this point, I'd have to figure out the rules for reconciling one dataset to another. I'd have to figure out which columns go with which other columns. And this could be, and is often, a very time-consuming trial and error-based process. But with ACRE, all I have to tell it is to figure out what the best mappings are. It does the work. ACRE incorporates advanced patent-pending statistical algorithms to figure out the best mappings. And in my case, with this dataset that I have here, it takes just a few minutes, and that's even with on the order of 500,000 transactions. When this is done, ACRE suggests how the datasets may map to one another. And not only that, but for each suggestion it gives me, it also tells me some statistics to tell me how confident it is and how productive each suggestion might be when I actually come to do the reconciliation. As the user, I can just take the suggestions if I want to, or I can down-select, reject some of the suggestions. And remember, ACRE is the software that figured out the rules that could have taken a lot of time for me as a user to configure and get right had I been using one of these off-the-shelf products that currently exists. Now we're ready to run the reconciliation. So I'm going to go ahead and do so, and we'll see the results taking shape as we watch. So I can see on this screen the total dollars and transaction reconciled, but as an accountant I don't want to just know that. I also actually want to see the detail that makes those numbers up. And I can do that on the final screen. So here I have the option to export the results, and if I do so, I get 3 CSV files that have all the detail that I could want. And these, by the way, also come from the SQL Server database, which I can query directly if I wanted to do so and if I know how to do so. So we're going to look at the individual files in Excel, and if we do so, we can see which transactions of our original 500,000 transactions were reconciled and which weren't. Each reconciled transaction is labeled with a number, and if we look at the two files together, what we can see is that the dollar amount for a particular group, and that's the group of transactions which are labeled with a particular number, the dollar amount of those transactions always agrees, and one dataset's the same as what it is in the other. And that's what we expect of reconciliation. So those are our results, and let's sum up. All we really had to do in Acre was point it to the two datasets, which in this case were pretty respectably large, and we had to tell it which column had the amount. We didn't have to tell it anything else about the datasets, like what the columns were, what was in the columns, and so on. So this is the essence of unsupervised reconciliation. Unsupervised because we don't have to guide the computer every step of the way. So it really is faster, better, and cheaper. A faster, better, and cheaper way of doing reconciliation.